What's going on, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione, and today we have Blake on the horn today. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
All right, so we're fresh back from Cali, from the Larry Wheels Invitational, so it was real exciting. And Blake won our Best Lifter award, which was really notable because also Blake is still a teenager. So, um, for those that maybe aren't aware of who you are, if you want to give us a quick intro, maybe some of your best lifts or any kind of notable accolades, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Blake Went. Been lifting now for about 5 years, competing for about three. Uh, as of now, I got a few world records. Probably the most notable one is when I was 17. I had the biggest total for any 16, 17-year-old or any teen too. Uh, Also got a couple USAPL national titles under my belt, and yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome, man. So, wanted to kind of hear a little about your experience from last weekend. But before we get into that, I want to kind of rewind to like kind of when you got started lifting. So, what kind of made you decide? What inspired you to kind of start getting into powerlifting and lifting weights in general?
Yeah, so basically over when COVID-19 happened, my we always had a gym in my basement. My dad's like, "Oh, you should use it more," And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." And I was like young, like 10 years old. And but basically when COVID happened, I was about like 12, 13, and that's when I started realizing like, wow, I'm really bored. So when I got really bored like that, I found my way in the basement and started lifting, and all of a sudden, I benched 135 at 12, and I was like, wow, that was like one of my first times ever benching. I was like, I'm kind of good at this. And so we kept pushing it from there. So basically, the COVID lifting in my basement is what brought me into the sport.
Awesome. And then it's kind of interesting. So during that time period was when I did my first and only bodybuilding show. So I think for some people, like completely fell off the wagon, and other people used it like, to kind of pass the time. Or so I know, like for me, like I like loved it because it was a new goal for me. It was a very lofty goal. Again, I'm not sure how familiar you are with my past and all that, but I was as heavy as 340 pounds. So for me to get lean enough to be on stage, I had to make sure all my boxes were checked, everything was dialed in, and that kind of allowed me to really kind of double down and like focus on the plan. And if you've ever done like bodybuilding style training, powerlifting takes a lot of time and effort and energy too. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of like the diet, the posing, the cardio, it just takes longer. It's as long. It's a different level of hard. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I think it's really cool that you kind of got into it and kind of got bit by the iron bug. So, so I guess like coming out of that, when did you, I guess, get the inclination that maybe you're like, I'm pretty good at this. I'd like to enter my first competition. So when did that
Yeah.
kind of like go into your head, and what was that like training for your first meet like?
Oh yeah. So that was when I was about 15. And my dad's like, you're like strong enough, but you just keep lifting in the basement, you're not really gonna get any like recognition from it. He's like, you should get into a powerlifting meet. And he did a couple back in, I don't know, the 80s. And so we're like, all right, let's find this. And so basically I followed a few powerlifters on Instagram, and I reached out to a few of them. I said, hey, do you have any meet coming up? And this one kid did respond, named Damien, and he's like, yeah, I do have a meet coming up. I was like, all right, sweet, I'll be there. So we drove 4 hours to Michigan. The training for that was uh probably as unoptimal as it could be. I did my first pause bench probably 2 weeks out, and I was looking at my dad like, man, why is it so much weaker? And that was very weird training for that. And I get to that meet. I'll never forget it. It was mostly most of the guys were equipped. I was one of the only guys raw with reps. So I go to this meet, never seeing anyone have lifted more than me. And I was right there. I couldn't get over this 315 bench. I've never seen anybody lift more than me. And I go to this meet and I see guys, literally benching 700, 800 pounds. I get back home and I rep 315 for two. And so that was definitely a great experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I know like when I kind of got into lifting, I did my first meet in 2006. And I was, a little bit older than you, but I was 18, and raw lifting hadn't really kind of got steam yet, and there was some raw federations where you had to kind of go to a special meet to kind of do raw. Otherwise, like everyone was kind of like lumped together.
Yeah.
Even like if you wore knee wraps, like that was considered like single ply. And like
Mhm.
at the APF and some other organizations, And yeah, it can be like humbling when you see someone, benching 700 or squatting 1,000 pounds,
Yeah.
regardless of what they're wearing. And it's kind of interesting. Like there are still kind of pockets like in Michigan, Ohio, some parts of, some parts of California, some parts of like, especially in the South where there are kind of pockets where there's still a lot of equipped lifting in certain areas. And I think
Oh yeah.
Michigan and Ohio and like that area is definitely like one of those places that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of from there, was there any kind of I guess you've competed a decent amount since then. I've done some, it looks like some different federations, some UPA, which I'm familiar with. I know like Eric Lillibridge that used to compete
Oh
a lot
yeah.
in federation, and then also some USAPL. So was there ever kind of like a moment or a meet where you kind of wanted to start to take things a little bit more seriously, or you thought you started to kind of check up on I actually maybe could hit some records. Was there ever a point in time where maybe there was a switch where you started to take things, a little bit
Yeah.
more seriously?
Yeah, so I always kind of knew that I was right there on the cusp of the record because I got the weight class record when I was 15, but I loved playing football at the time. So I was doing football and powerlifting, and I loved doing both, but it was really my junior year of high school when I went to like the high school nationals and I got third place. And I was like, if I didn't play football, I would have won this. And I was pretty good at football and I had a D1 offer after my junior year, but it just didn't seem like what I wanted to do anymore. So it was right after that nationals. I called the coach. I was like, hey, I appreciate it, but I can't be doing football year round if I think I'm strong enough to do something. And a lot of people didn't agree with my decision. They're like, oh man, it's just your senior year playing football. You'll like it. And I was like, but I've never really been a huge fan of football. I liked it more when I was like young, not like the super serious part. And they're like, I don't know. Everybody doubted me, this and that. And then that's basically when I went full on into work when I was 17. And I really like blew up then. And I think I really made it worth it.
Yeah, I think it's important that whether you're your age or even as people kind of get older, I think it's good to experience a lot of different sports. I had like a football and wrestling background. I was never really accomplished in anything, but I did always like enjoy the training. And I didn't think I was going to cut it as a collegiate wrestler. And so that's why, but I always enjoyed the training. My middle school wrestling coach was a former power lifter, and I just wanted to stay competitive and just do something different. So as soon as I did my first meet, I was kind of hooked, kind of like yourself.
Yeah.
I learned how to pause on the bench like that meet, and I kind of took a hit on my bench and my squat and things like that. But even though I didn't really have the best performance in my first meet, I got hungry for more, and that's kind of like why I got into coaching and all the stuff. I wanted to help other people kind of from the mistakes that I made as a wrestler and getting into powerlifting. So I think that's important that whether it be powerlifting or some other strength sport, I think it's important to have a goal, and I think it's important that you kind of enjoy the process of it. So you kind of like figure that out early on, and I think that's really important because if you don't really like love it, I think you're only going to take it so far, and then when things get tough, a lot of people will kind of quit. So I think that's a great realization that you kind of made that. And sometimes I think it's really interesting, and I definitely want to kind of get into the weekend. I know that you kind of do some training with elbow wraps, which is not like a sanctioned thing. And I think that it's important, like for me, just so you know, and so I dabbled in like the raw lifting for like a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a memory pop up, so I've done like a 700-pound squat in sleeves. I've done like a 750. I never really like trained for that specifically. And I just kind of felt like a little bit like that I kind of needed to just to also understand like the programming of it a little bit better. But after like a while, like kind of just for myself, I just always like enjoyed equipped lifting. That's kind of what I grew up, you know, watching Louis Simmons and learning from him in person and a lot
Yeah.
of his mentors. And so in terms of my own competing, I just kind of like at this point, I'm getting older. I'm not going to kind of do it for anyone else. And I think that's kind of important. So like if you kind of maybe like fell out of love with football, even if maybe it was an opportunity or whatever, if your heart wasn't in it, I think that's really important. So I wanted to kind of highlight that for the listeners because sometimes I think people sometimes get into a certain sport or they might stay with the sport for the wrong reasons and then they have resentment or maybe they don't kind of excel as much as they could if they really enjoyed it or if they really fell in love with it. So
Yeah.
anyways, kind of fast forward. So I want to kind of hear about like maybe let me just see. I have some of your open powerlifting kind of here. So it looks like yes, I guess like your meet before. I'm not sure. Yes, it looks like you had a pretty good. So was your last meet when you hit the record for USAPL? The last one you did?
Uh, that yeah, I think that was like a USAPL record. The big meet that was 2 meets ago. That was about last summer. The last meet that was USA. That was a tough one too. Hit a close loss. The guy out deadlifted me third deadlift attempt, and I was like, man.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want to maybe just tell us, I want to, and then we'll kind of get to like this weekend, but maybe like if you want to tell us about maybe your best, whether it be your best total or your best, performance and kind of maybe how you kind of trained going into that, and then maybe just about the day itself. I'd be curious to kind
Okay.
of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so my best performance that was about a year ago. Um, that was raw with wraps. That was 1863, and I weighed in at 241. Uh, that was by far the best meet ever. So going into that meet, I had just come off of like the USAPL high school nationals. Wasn't much competition for me there, but Larry had actually reposted my bench. It was when I first hit 500 at 17 and elbow reps then. And so there was a ton of steam going into that one. I had a great crew. We had a gym that was, I don't know, it was the size of like a small shopping store basically. And yeah, we had a monolift in the back corner, train there every Saturday morning. We'd squat. It was really really great training going into that, and every lift was going good going into that meet. That I couldn't have planned a better meet. So that's when I hit that 1863. I beat that last record by about 5 pounds. Recently I'm still getting stronger, but I've just been dealing with some sciatica starting from my back, caused from a football injury, of course. uh, but yeah, that's kind of why my deadlift's been lagging a little bit, hasn't been progressing a ton. And then ultimately, it kind of touches my squat as well, just since I'm putting a lot more pressure on one leg than the other. But hopefully, within the next few weeks here, I'm talking to some doctors. We're going to get everything figured out, whatever that's going to be. But that meet last year, that was definitely biggest meet of my life. 1863. I'll never forget that one. And I was 17. I even beat this guy out of like best lifter, but they gave him a 25 dot increase because he was from that home gym. He was in sleeves, I was in wraps, so they gave him
Try to like
25.
they tried to
Yeah,
like make it which yeah, it's like kind of
yeah,
yeah, those are kind of tough calls for like a meet director. There was a one meet I had like a similar situation where um I was lifting with one of my buddies, Travis Rogers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, Pop Bear Rogers. And we were originally supposed to both do that meet multiply, and then he decided like last minute to go single ply. And
yeah,
I out totaled him, I think by like, I forget how much, maybe it was like 30, 40 pounds or whatever. It came down to the last deadlift. And then because we had like just a little friendly competition, it wasn't like, but then, the meet direct. So they ended up giving him like the best lifter award, even though because you're not getting as much out of the single ply. But it's like, how do you kind of like equate
yeah,
equate for that? But anyways, I had the bigger total, and that was like for our friendly competition. So so I won the head
yeah.
to head, and that was kind of like his decision to kind of change his gear like last minute. So anyways, still a great performance nonetheless. And yeah, I've definitely kind of been there where like when I first started, I was like competing against a lot of older gentlemen, but now there's like a lot of people like yourself that are kind of choosing powerlifting over like more traditional sports, which I think is really cool. So kind of fast forward to like the weekend, kind of a small intimate group. We wanted to kind of make sure that you guys got a lot of attention. It was the first meet that we did at Larry Wheels Gym at One Gen Gym, and we're real excited. So, and this was kind of like a long time coming in the works. Prior to this, Larry was living in Dubai. I was kind of getting settled in. I just got married recently. I kind of moved out of New York. I'm in Delaware now. It's been One Gen is actually celebrating their 1 year anniversary, I think, in a few days.
Yeah.
So things kind of like aligned. We met up at the Arnold. We got to chat at the Arnold, and we just kind of decided that it was kind of time to start to do some events together. That now that Larry's back in the States, so we weren't sure exactly what direction we wanted to go. We wanted to make sure that we had a good combination of younger lifters, first time lifters, And then also we kind of surprised some people with
Oh
some veterans
yeah.
and some special guests there, Steffi Cohen, Dan Green, and that was, I'm sure, really special for you. So if you want to kind of just take us through the weekend, maybe some of the highlights, and then kind of anything like notable as far as like things that you liked about the event and maybe any personal um anything that you kind of remember that was like really special for you.
Oh yeah. So I was really like kind of nervous at the start because I didn't realize how small that the group was gonna be. Obviously seeing the spot, I was like, oh, this is kind of gonna be tough. But the smaller group, and I think that it was probably the best meet that I've ever been to so far. The pacing, everything was perfect. And I've been to a lot of high level meets where it's very hard to keep track of. I think this meet was just definitely ran just the best so far. And the one gen gym, obviously, crazy cool gym. The lighting in that room where we were competing also was awesome. And
Yeah.
then, but even having just Steffi Cohn back there and then Dan Green and not being that many people back there, it was so crazy to kind of like talk to them every now and then. And it was I see these people online and then you talk to them in person, you're like, wow, they're people too. They're not just internet personalities,
Yeah.
And so that was definitely like, especially when I saw Dan Green walk in there, and I used to watch Eric Lowbridge, being from Chicago. These are the guys, and I see Dan Green open the door when we're in the rules meeting, and I'm just like, wait, what? Like, forget the rules. Holy crap, who's that? But yeah, definitely like amazing ran meet. I like how we were able to all warm up together too. That was I've multiple times now I've been off pace in the back room warm ups
Yeah.
because it's just they're not kind of keeping you up to speed on when are we starting, and
Right.
that happens a lot on national meets as well.
Yeah, so and we'll kind of progress as we go, but I think that's so. Yeah, number one, I wanted some of the things to be a little bit of a surprise, and I think that was really cool that you guys got to share the platform with some really notable people. Um, giving Miss Larry Williams a shout out as well. I also want people to see that Larry just got his pro card. He's a three-time all-time record holder, three different weight classes. He wasn't like above spotting. He wasn't above handing off. He wasn't above working the deadlift jack. And I think that's really important. I wanted to make sure that hopefully that the internet will see that. Hopefully, and you guys took note of that, even if it was subconsciously, that like we're all kind of like trying to do the same thing. We're all in this together. And if we all kind of contribute, it just makes it better for everyone. So, because I think what I've kind of seen over the years, unfortunately, and unfortunately it has been like in certain federations, certain people, some people, there is a good amount of entitlement. There is people that kind of think maybe that they're better than other people, but like you said, they're people too, and you guys deserve a good platform. You guys deserve a good experience, and I also wanted to make sure that you guys got a little bit of a taste of maybe some of the coaching that Larry experienced, some of the help with like the warm-ups and stuff like that. Because I think also too, like not everyone has like a great handler, not everyone has a high level coach that can help them. And I wanted you guys to kind of get a little bit of a taste of that. So take us like through the day, because I know you had a really great squat, really great bench press. I know you kind of mentioned the deadlift wasn't feeling great, but still, still a great performance. But take us through like the day, so maybe some of the notable lifts, and then we can also talk about I know you also did an exhibition lift as well, which was really
Yeah.
cool. And we'll kind of talk about that last.
Yeah, so when I got there, about 10 minutes before rules meeting, and we walk back there, do the rules meeting, and we're starting to warm up on squat. Like I said, great warm-ups, great timing. And yeah, I got to touch back on I forgot to even speak about Larry. He's like his presence is crazy. And I
Yeah.
remember when we were doing weigh-ins the day before too, he came by and shook everyone's hand, and I thought that was really admirable because I've seen multiple people that are, way less following than him, way smaller,
Yeah.
don't care to do anything like that. And so, his presence when I was warming up on squat, he walked over and you look over and you see the mountain of the man right there. And he's just so friendly talking to everybody. But yeah, that the squats got going, opener 628, bar kind of rolled on my back a little bit, called the lighter end second attempt, which was 666, move well. And then you helped me make a great call on the third attempt squat, which was 689 with Larry on the back spot. Definitely helped me get that one up. And
Yeah.
that was a great squat for me, about 12-pound meat PR, maybe 13 pounds. And moving on to bench, 3 of 3 on there as well. 429 opener, smoked it. 463 second. My foot kind of slipped, kind of made it a little bit slower. You also kind of gave me the information to go only, 10 pounds heavier. Luckily, my foot stayed set on that third attempt, so I was able to smoke that one too. And then we did the 501 exhibition lift after that, which was definitely something I'll never forget. With Larry giving the lift off, and I knew that I would smoke that one. I've been waiting for that one for a while. Then onto the deadlift, perfect timing in between the lifts as well. And deadlift, kind of like the sciatica that was rough. 562 opener, did that sumo, 606 second, did that sumo. And then I put in for 661 third, which I missed. I just threw that one conventional just because that shooting pain down the leg, but
And
overall, great day, 8 of 9.
yeah, and then I want to also just kind of comment a little bit on like some of the exhibition stuff, and it's kind of in the works. I think one of our ideas for like an event is and we're not exactly sure if we're going to do like kind of like how you did, whether maybe it's just like one extra one, or the other thing that we've been kind of toying around is maybe we'll do like two events, two lifts raw, maybe two lifts with like additional gear. So maybe do two lifts without the elbow wraps, two lifts with something like that. Those are just some ideas, but I think that we wanted to kind of provide also an experience where people can maybe we want to also encourage some lifters that maybe wouldn't normally do like a sanctioned powerlifting meet to also
Oh yeah.
because there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of great benchers, there's a lot of great deadlifters. Maybe they have some injuries, or maybe they just have a preference where they just want to lift with a little bit more supportive gear, but they're not quite like ready, or they don't really have the time, the resources, or techniques to do. Maybe they're not interested in getting in like a bench shirt or a deadlift suit, but maybe they would, like to try an elbow wrapped bench, or like maybe they want to pull with straps. And maybe it might not count for like a record, but still to like kind of do it in front of a crowd, still to kind of get certified judges to say this is still to a competition standard, even though you're wearing like the supportive gear. And I think that's something that's kind of another kind of interesting thing, because one of the contests that we're looking to do is kind of a push pull where that could be like we'll have a raw option and we'll also have like an unsanctioned, kind of elbow wraps and like straps meet, because I think that could be something fun. Potentially, it's going to allow you to lift a little bit more weight for some overload, but also potentially be a little bit safer, like for your bicep on the deadlift, for example, or maybe potentially give you maybe someone's got some elbow problems. So there are some benefits. Obviously, the overload, there's kind of a cost and benefit there. So you're using more weight, but potentially, in some respects, it could be a little bit safer to max out because you're more supported as well. But yeah, that was really cool. I mean, you crushed it, so that was really exciting for the crowd.
Oh yeah.
You kind of Steffi Cohen did something similar where, she had a little bit of a technical error on her third attempt, but then we kind of let her kind of pull it with straps, and she did it not only once, but she doubled 500 pounds, which is
Oh
like
yeah.
unbelievable. So that was a really great way to like kind of end the show. And I wanted to kind of, like you said, just kind of give a little bit of history about the sport for people that may not know. And one of the things that we're kind of trying to do is make you guys feel a little bit more like it's a community. So I don't know if any like kind of other comments as far as like the group vibes, the interactions you had with some of the other lifters and some of the other people. What were your thoughts about like kind of the community experience
Oh
as a
yeah. Yeah. I gotta say it was crazy to see how humble everybody was for how strong everybody was in the group. Even I forgot the kid's name, but I mean, he pulled 623 at 16 years old,
Yeah, it was crazy.
and very, very nice kid. And I'll never forget my second meet ever. It was full of a bunch of guys with like 1,400 pound totals. And I mean, their egos were just through the roof. Now
Yeah.
they were stronger than me at the time, but their egos were just through the roof. But going to like this meet, seeing all these crazy strong people, I mean, Steffi Koenig had been at one point the strongest woman ever, being so humble, so nice, seeing her and her boyfriend say good job to me. That was crazy to me. The group was just very, very humble. It was just a great, great environment to be in.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point about Steffi as well, if you I don't know if you were kind of competing, so maybe you picked up on this, maybe not, but and part of it being a great athlete is sometimes having like these rituals where it's just kind of a mental thing where you get kind of it allows you to kind of flip a switch in a sense where you kind of start to really zone in and focus and get in that flow state. And one of the things that Steffi does, she always gives like it's a little bit different for each lift, but she'll always give like a little bow. So I don't know if she's uh whether it be respecting the weight or respecting the platform or some combination. It's just kind of a little reset that she's kind of showing that kind of she's grateful to be on the platform. She's grateful to have the opportunity to lift. And again, if anyone like doesn't need to do that, someone like a Larry or a Steffi, but if you kind of to your point, I think that the best of the best usually are the most humble and most respectful, especially to like the sport itself. So I think again that was a really cool moment, and hopefully, and we had a lot of lifters like yourself that were younger or they were first timers. So I think that was a really great experience for them. We want to definitely kind of showcase that, and kind of bring more of like sense of like what, at least in my opinion, the community and what powerlifting should really be about. Because I don't think it's okay like to have some confidence and be cocky to a point, but like I said, at the end of the day, we want to we're all kind of in this together. We want to, have a positive place for people to lift. So I'm glad that you had a great experience. So tell us a little bit about where people may, if they want to follow your journey. I think you have a YouTube channel as well as an Instagram, and if there's any other or kind of meets in your future that you're working towards.
Yeah, so my Instagram's Blake Went One, last name is spelled Wendt. My YouTube just Blake Went. Upcoming meet, we got one June 14th. So since I did miss weight at this meet, by 9 pounds even, I was like, all right, we're just gonna jump right back into another meet because I'm trying to get a record. So we're gonna jump back into that meet. I'll hopefully make the 242 weight class this time. That's June 14th, and we'll try to break 1840, or 1835, which I think should be doable.
Awesome, man. We'll definitely give Blake a follow. It was great having you there. Like I said, it was a great event, and I was happy you were a part of it. And we hope to kind of see you again at our meets in the future. Definitely give Blake a follow. Thank you guys so much for watching. If this podcast helped you, please give it a 5-star review. Please share it. And until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon. Okay.